Artificial humans take over the planet, and real ones go into hiding.
Hello, Tom. Nice to finally meet you.
In the 21st century, America is astounding the world with its progressive approach to life. Dr. Lionel Cantor, the head of Virtual Self Industries, VSI, along with his co-founders, is developing a system that completely transforms the lives of people with disabilities. In this setup, individuals, called operators, control androids using the power of neural impulses in their brains. These androids, known as surrogates, relay all the sensations they experience back to their operators. This technology gives those who are unable to move due to health issues or injuries a chance to lead full and vibrant lives through their robotic counterparts. 7 years after the project's inception, humanity realizes that robots can be utilized in all aspects of life, from peacekeeping missions to everyday activities. During this time, the use of robots has dramatically reduced mortality rates, epidemics, and crime, as every American citizen can live their dream life without leaving their home. Despite all the advantages of a robotic world, there is a small group, about 2% of the population, who are staunchly opposed to androids. 3 years before the official introduction of surrogates, these so-called dread colonies began staging mass protests. This group of people lives in isolation, far from the soulless artificial world. Like any rebellious movement, they have a leader who guides them in their fight for a real future, and he is known as the Prophet. On the day of the presentation, the corporation launches an advertising campaign, stating that anyone can choose an artificial prototype of any gender, nationality, and appearance, regardless of their natural origins. One evening, a young man is riding in an expensive car, talking to his father on the phone. He sincerely thanks his father for the opportunity to take a break from exams by attending a luxurious opera. However, after hanging up, he informs the driver, Armando, that they have other plans for the evening. Instead of the opera house, they are heading to a nightclub. On the way to the club, a motorcyclist, who has been waiting for this moment, starts tailing the car. Once inside the club, filled with rich, beautiful, and vibrant young people, the student in his expensive suit climbs the stairs to the balcony on the second floor. As if testing his immortality, he joyfully jumps onto the dance floor below. Landing on the floor, he starts dancing with a liberated, seductive blonde to the rhythm of the club music. After a while, the pair leaves the noisy place through the back door. Embracing and sharing a passionate kiss, the girl notices someone watching them. When her companion turns towards the uninvited guest, he dismissively tells him to leave.
Get lost, meatbag.
In response to these words, the motorcyclist pulls out a weapon and hits the two surrogates with such a powerful impulse that they are unlikely to be repaired. As the killer leaves the scene, he swerves into oncoming traffic, cutting off a car and causing an accident, before disappearing in an unknown direction. When the patrol police arrive at the scene of the accident, besides the overturned car and the driver torn in half, they also notice 2 damaged androids unrelated to the crash. As a result, they call in a federal investigation team. Agents Jennifer Peters and Tom Greer examine the robot bodies. The attack could be considered an act of vandalism, but since one of the surrogates is unregistered, it raises significant suspicion. Extracting the damaged chips, the agents identify the operator of the female surrogate. The owner, Cameron McAllister, hasn't reported the expensive surrogate's malfunction, which further complicates the investigation. When they arrive at McAllister's residence, the concierge opens the door, but the apartment owner doesn't respond to her calls. Jennifer Peters notices a corner of the bedroom filled with wigs, women's accessories, and cosmetics, which explains why the man chose to use a female surrogate. Hearing her partner scream, Tom Greer rushes to her and sees that the blonde's operator is dead. His head appears to have exploded, indicating that the safety mechanisms protecting surrogate users from life-threatening risks have failed. After leaving the crime scene, Tom returns home and plugs his younger clone into its charging station. The real Greer, in pajamas, gets up from the control chair and surveys the empty rooms of his apartment. He enters his late son's room, who died in a car accident, and sorrowfully looks at his baseball. Later, he considers knocking on the door of his grief-stricken wife, Maggie Greer, who is long withdrawn into herself, but her surrogate intercepts him. When they meet again in the kitchen, Tom suggests going on a vacation, and Maggie enthusiastically supports the idea, proposing a trip to Hawaii. However, Tom means a vacation for the 2 real people, which greatly frightens his wife. She cannot imagine appearing in the real world without her artificial shell, so she deflects, citing a heavy workload at the beauty salon before the summer season, and avoids the conversation. Meanwhile, at San Diego College, classmates find a student dead in his simulation chair, looking exactly like Cameron McAllister. Upon receiving information about the second operator's murder, FBI agent Andrew Stone forbids his subordinates from sharing any details with the press to avoid causing panic among the public. However, since the deceased student is Jared Kanner, the only son of the creator of Surrogates, the news is already being broadcast on all channels. It turns out that years ago, Lionel Kanner had disputes with his corporate partners. Their disagreements could have significantly impacted the company's future, leading to his forced resignation. Dr. Kanner refuses to comment on the tragedy. Agents Peters and Greer visit Lionel Kanner's home and speak with his surrogate. In their attempts to uncover the truth, Lionel realizes that the person who killed Jared had reasons to wish death not upon his son, but upon him. This means he inadvertently caused his own tragedy. Reaching this conclusion, consumed by guilt and pain, Dr. Kanner disconnects his surrogate, weeping in his wheelchair. To gather more information, the agents head to VSI. Following an aggressive testing of the mechanisms, the company's advertising slogans promise clients an incredible combination of machine durability and human sophistication. The corporation offers the experience of an extreme, vibrant life without any health risks for the operator. The agents meet with the company's vice president, Victor Welch, and 2 corporate lawyers. The self-assured Welch sends his regards to Andrew Stone, indicating that he has connections even within the FBI. This doesn't deter Tom from asking Victor the pressing questions. Interestingly, neither Welch nor his lawyers can explain why the surrogate's head explosion causes the operator's brain to boil. One of the female lawyers vehemently defends the technology, prompting Tom Greer to retort with disgust that he isn't sure who he is really talking to. Behind her sweet face could be a sweaty 40-year-old pervert. This statement visibly unsettles the lawyer, as if revealing her true nature. After this exchange, Greer and Peters take the elevator, not to leave the company but to dig deeper. They find a scientist involved in the development and repair of surrogates and learn that a batch of military surrogates arrived last week, missing both vision systems and motherboards. To verify another lead, the FBI agents visit Colonel Brandon, who currently oversees peacekeeping operations in certain areas. The colonel denies any military involvement in the elimination of surrogates, explaining that they actively use surrogates in combat and always retrieve the schematics for system analysis. Back at FBI headquarters, Jennifer Peters finds a suspect resembling the motorcyclist among previously convicted individuals. The suspect is Miles Strickland, previously arrested for theft but released immediately after his arrest, suggesting someone might be protecting him. After issuing a search warrant for Strickland, the agents approach Bobby Sanders. He is the only person in the department without a surrogate, believing no machine can keep up with his mind. Seeing the agents at the entrance to the monitoring department, Bobby informs them that the dread they are looking for has been spotted in Dorchester, and a patrol unit has already been dispatched. To save time, Tom Greer leaves his partner with Bobby and heads off to pursue Miles. Jennifer also learns from Bobby that he uses a cutting-edge program to track suspects. This program isn't exactly banned in the country, but it also hasn't received official approval.
They don't ask, we don't tell. Oh, come on. Relax, we're the good guys.
At that moment, on one of the screens, 2 male surrogate figures are seen harassing a girl in a hotel room. As she screams for help, Bobby Sanders immediately blocks the users and shuts down the androids, giving the victim a chance to escape. Meanwhile, Tom Greer pursues the individual in the helicopter, hoping he can shed light on the situation. In his pursuit, the police enter Dread territory. Knowing the area like the back of his palm, Miles Strickland dashes into an alley and retrieves his weapon. Within seconds, a wave of pulses hits the police officers, and later, the helicopter. Unlike his colleagues, operator Tom manages to remove his simulation glasses, but he still feels the impact. Realizing this might be his last chance to apprehend the weapon owner, Officer Greer puts on the gear again and gets back to work. Despite the absence of a forearm, the robot chases Strickland for a long time, eventually catching up with the exhausted man. The officer demands Strickland return the bag with the weapon, and he complies. However, since this is the territory of living people, a group of armed dreads wielding axes and guns attacks the surrogate, dismantling him for parts. The real Tom attempts to crawl to his wife's room but loses consciousness near her door. When Maggie's clone returns home with a friend, they find her husband bloodied in the hallway and quickly call for help. The morning after the FBI helicopter crashes on Dread territory, the Prophet declares a blatant violation of territorial integrity, which could only mean one thing: a revolution. Also, the Prophet himself finds Strickland and tries to find out who exactly is giving orders to destroy surrogates. However, the man informs him that he has never seen the client face to face. FBI agent Andrew Stone visits his subordinate Tom in the hospital and informs him that he miraculously survived the incident. However, he won't be issued a new surrogate and ID until the investigation is complete. Jennifer Peters is also sidelined, accused of failing to protect her partner from a serious mistake. Despite the ban, Officer Greer meets with his partner and informs her that he intends to see the case through. As they walk down the street, unfamiliar and shaken by the trauma, the noise of cars and the huge crowd frighten the man at every step. To solve this problem, Agent Peters takes Tom to a store for a new surrogate, but he refuses to go along with the idea. Since the FBI agent plans to enter Dread territory, he asks Peters to stay home because, as a robot, she won't be of any help. Greer passes through the checkpoint in the reservation and witnesses the body of Miles Strickland being burned on a huge funeral pyre, while the prophet reads the last words of thanks for timely deeds done, for which he came to earth. At the end of the farewell ceremony, the officer personally seeks out the leader of the Dreads and requests an audience, but instead of a greeting, he receives blows to the body from his henchmen. Believing that the man has experienced enough pain, the prophet suggests explaining the reason for the visit. Tom Greer wonders how exactly Strickland, who had dangerous weapons in his hands, died and where it went. The man also warns that the FBI won't stop until the population is safe. In response, the prophet promises to return the weapon directly to the hands of the police as soon as he has it. When the FBI agent returns to his territory, he is met by a car, inside of which Dr. Cantor awaits him disguised as a teenage boy. He accuses Tom of not making any progress in the murder investigation. Greer informs him that the culprit in his son's murder is dead, but that's not enough for Lionel, as he is convinced that behind the little man, there are many people with big money who need to be punished. When Tom returns home, he sees his wife's surrogate guests relaxing with the help of electric doping, which the operators experience as a high. With disdain for his wife, he heads to the kitchen to grab a beer and tells Meg to continue having fun. After a while, unable to tolerate the disgusting laughter of the inadequate guests, Greer smashes the metal face of one of the surrogates and leaves the apartment. When his wife catches up to him, he pours his heart out to her, expressing how much he misses her, the real her, not the thermoplastic robot. Hearing this, she asserts that she is no longer the person he once loved and leaves, finding it too difficult to discuss the matter. Each of the spouses deals with their pain differently. Maggie drowns hers in tears and sedatives, while Tom throws himself into his work. Arriving at headquarters, the agent learns that the Pentagon initially signed a contract for the development and supply of weapons from VSI, but then unexpectedly terminated it. That same night, an unknown android breaks into Agent Peters' home, and after checking her surrogate's records, destroys the operator and connects a new user to the agent's surrogate. The next day, Tom Greer visits Colonel Brandon and asks about the Pentagon contracts, promising to tell him where the weapon is in return. It turns out that VSI received a request from the military for a weapon, the essence of which was that one shot penetrates the robot's central control and neutralizes the enemy. And no one expected that this virus would break the protection for the operator and cause their lethal outcome. Tom Greer says that the last specimen of nano-weaponry is located on human territory, prompting the colonel to prepare for the seizure of this potentially dangerous item. Meanwhile, the prophet hands over a briefcase with the weapon to his people and asks them to personally deliver it into the hands of FBI agent Jennifer Peters. Feeling guilty towards his wife, Tom visits her beauty salon and tells her that he can't eat or sleep without her, that he misses her terribly. He wants to know if she remembers their son. When he tries to convince her again that she is beautiful and loved, Maggie's operator interrupts the connection, deeming the dialogue pointless. The military lands in the human reservation at the same time the prophet, through radio channels, calls on everyone to take up arms, as the day has come. As it turns out, the military are forced to end the prophet's life, only to discover that he too is a surrogate. The sight shocks the colonel, with Lionel personally witnessing it from his home. After a while, Agent Tom Greer learns from Peters that Miles Strickland had been working for the FBI for 1.5 years, which means that Chief Stone is hiding something. Playing the fool, Greer sneaks into Andrew's office and asks what drove him to hand over the weapon, which killed so many innocent souls. Calling Tom crazy, Andrew tries to make a call, but the officer manages to insert a knife into his operating system, causing the surrogate to short-circuit. Taking advantage of the facial scan, Tom accesses his computer and downloads the necessary data and passwords. The operator of the FBI chief calls the duty officer and asks to detain the rebel, but it is already too late. Tom gets into Peters' car and uploads all the passwords onto a flash drive. Seeing that the upload is complete, Peters takes the weapon and passwords, calls the police to report that Agent Greer has been in an accident, and then jumps out while the car is still moving. No matter how hard Tom tries to catch and stop his former partner, she manages to escape, using her inhuman abilities. And Greer doesn't notice as he veers into oncoming traffic and crashes into a store window. He manages to hide before the operatives arrive and later escapes altogether. While Jennifer Peters hacks into the surrogate system, Greer hastily calls Bobby, but he is chained to a pole. However, Bobby manages to answer the call, and to warn the agent about what Peters is doing in his server room. He starts bombarding Jennifer with questions. At that moment, the repaired Andrew Stone enters the department and sees Peters aiming at Bobby. He asks her to calm down, but she unexpectedly asks him a question. How much did the enemies from the corporation pay him to kill his son? Realizing it's Cantor, he responds that all he wanted was for surrogates to continue their existence and live like humans. Smirking at the absurdity of his statement, the surrogate Jennifer moves the gun away from Bobby and at the same moment aims the viral emitter at Stone, depriving both the mechanism and the operator of life. Hearing the dialogue, Tom arrives at Cantor's mansion and finds a hidden room in the house. At first, he examines numerous surrogates standing on charge, among which were 2 prophets, a young guy, and even the one who shot Agent Peters at night. Walking through the corridors, Greer comes face to face with the creator of all surrogates in the world. The elderly Lionel points a small revolver at the FBI agent, fully prepared to shoot if necessary.
I changed the course of human history when I invented surrogates. Now I'm gonna change it back.
Tom reminds him that by this act, he won't bring his son back, yet the creator wishes that his son's death will not be in vain. Lionel Canner wants to heal the people who died when they connected themselves to the machines. Even if he kills them all along with the robots, so be it, because he sees no better solution. Greedy individuals turned a sincere human dream into banal commerce. Instead of making the disabled feel complete, everyone around became incomplete by creating a substitute for reality. A message appears on the screen stating that the upload is complete, and Lionel informs the agent that he will witness the true rebirth, and this is his gift to Tom. The scientist swallows a cyanide pill, unable to bear the weight of all his creations, and loses consciousness. Then the officer wastes no time and connects to Jennifer's surrogate, freeing Bobby's mouth from the tape. He learns how to stop the tragedy of immense proportions, and to disconnect all operators from the surrogate system. Tom blocks them with Bobby Sanderson's guidance. They manage to save 1 billion lives in the final seconds. But if they don't make the final cancellation, then in 10 seconds, all surrogates will cease to exist. Confirming that everything will be fine with the people, Tom fulfills the final will of the creator of the robots and destroys his machines. A sniper shoots Jennifer in the head, but it's too late. The world with its substituted reality ceases to exist in an instant. All transportation crashes, and the country seems to be dying out. After some time, living people emerge onto the streets, disheveled, unwashed, overweight, in their pajamas. They resemble moles emerging from their burrows or zombies, which seems more likely. Tom Greer returns home and, unable to resist, kicks open the locked room of his wife. To his surprise, she's not inside. He finds his beloved Maggie in his son's room and finally feels the long-awaited touch of his beloved, who collapses into his arms in the next moment. Now the world will have to survive on its own for a while, as it's uncertain whether the surrogate control center will ever be restored. Would you like to have such a clone? Was it fair to deprive limited people of this opportunity? Leave your answers in the comments below, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Till next time.